So normally I don't do this a whole lot, mostly because I think room tour videos are kind of cheap, and every time I do them, my room only has minor changes, and then when you actually see my room, there's really nothing much to say. After all, you only see like only like three different angles of my room at any given time in my videos, unless I'm focusing on a video game console, but that's more so just for like specific shots, not like me filming myself. So anyway, here's what I've been doing to my room. So there's a bit of a story to this. So my group home that I've been living in decided to mandate that we clean our rooms twice a week, and that's been going on for the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks if I'm going to be honest. And normally the staff handle the other rooms because my housemates aren't that autonomous, but I am autonomous, so I am responsible for this space. And I just want to show off what I've been doing in this space the last few weeks and what I've been doing to improve things. And I would do, every twice a week, I would do a different portion of my room. Like one day I did the floors and did some reorganization, moved some stuff from underneath my bed. I did the corner of my bed over here that's been neglected. And today I did several things. I managed my desk, I managed the back area, the front area of my room, and I did a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm proud to show it off because I am bored and I need to make content, so this is the best you're getting. Also, I'm not editing this in DaVinci Resolve, I'm actually editing this in CapCut, so if things seem a little unnecessarily simplistic, that is why. So let's start off with this back corner. So this area, nobody really sees the floor of because the floor is been done rather well. I swept and mopped it, so everything should be good. But right here, I want to focus on this area a little bit because this area has always been kind of a slight issue, mostly because there's always shit over here, there's shit over there, but now it's a lot more managed. A lot of the stuff came from underneath my bed. That got moved over here. Most notably, these two shoe boxes containing my Switch games and miscellaneous items. My two Pokemon card binders, because yes, I used to collect Pokemon cards. No, I don't do it anymore. Screw those things, because it's basically gambling. And this area has been neatly stacked into a kind of a rickety tower of CDs, PlayStation games, and books. There's my Protogen plushie right there that I bought at Anthro New England. The Dreamcast games have been reorganized. This allows for future expansion of my Dreamcast library. Before you ask why the blacks and the whites are separated, no, it's not because I'm a racist. It's because I really don't like it when game companies redo their game box art template or whatever. And that means I have to separate the two when I organize them. So, yeah. I do the same exact thing with my PS3 games. It's just something I do for visual cohesion. Yeah, I know it's a very inefficient system of organization, but what can I say? But how I organize my Dreamcast games is not the point of this video. The point of it is to show you that this area is looking a lot better. This area has also been improved substantially. I unplugged the PS2 and N64 controllers. I tried to cut down on the unnecessarily draping wires, but some of them are kind of needed. Like the Dreamcast kind of needs all three controllers because the VMUs hold like a gnat's dick worth of space on them. The Saturn has also needs a controller. The GameCube also needs a controller. And I recently bought a Wii U Pro controller because I love my Wii U enough that I'm willing to do that. I also bought a new Switch Pro controller because my other one died. So that's interesting. Also, cleaning chemical area. Also, another thing I also want to point out is I have decided to reunite a lot of my Saturn games, except for these two games that are in sleeves. One is Virtua Fighter Remix, the other is Virtua Cop. So counting those two and not counting my homebrew shit for the Saturn, I have 41 games. That's right, I own 16% of the Saturn library. Albeit on a technicality, it's more like 15.89% exactly, right on the dot, I think. So yeah, I own 41 out of the 258 games that were released in the West. And as you can see, it took up a lot of shelf space, so much to the point where my Switch games are currently a bit homeless, but I'll figure that out someday. This may need a future reconfiguration, but right now this is the best that I got for the time being. Then we go to this corner. This corner has been cleaned up substantially. A lot of shit has been removed. That area has been, last week was cleaned and mopped. Might have to do it again sometime next week just for maintenance sake, but that has largely been upkept. And this corner gets the award for most improved. So there's a computer tower here that I've been using as a nightstand for a lot of shit. I since removed that, put it into the basement. I took the Wii balance board that's underneath there, put that in the basement. There was also a lamp there that I never used, and that was already unplugged, so that was also thrown into the basement. And a lot of the stuff that was on it, including my paintings, my weird Target radio, and my Railway Series books, have been moved to this nightstand, and everything has been made a lot more efficient in that regard. So that's the bed. The desk is always in a state of flux. I don't usually count the desk, but yeah. And an interesting thing to note is my controller drawer now opens and closes. It only barely opens up now. That's because it's crammed full of controllers, some of which honestly should go into the basement, but, you know, my grandmother was a hoarder, and I think that passed down through the family tree to me, and I've been trying to kick that habit, so, yeah. I guess I should go to the tripod now, should I? That should do it for this cheaply made, quickly made, slop content. Normally I don't do a whole lot of slop stuff because it's kind of stupid and not really great. At least I don't use AI though, so yeah. Yeah, that's the stuff that I've been really wanting to get at. Another thing I also want to get at that really pisses me off, and this is just a complete side tangent, by the way. If you're satisfied with the room, I wouldn't call it a room tour, it's more like a room demo, I guess, or whatever. I can't find the term in my mind. So if you're through watching the room tour stuff, you can click off now. If you want to hear me talk about my recent misadventures with the Sega Saturn, this is the point to jump on. And as such, this video will be split up into chapters. This is the point where I talk about Saturn shit. Okay, so every year at PAX East, I always buy a shitload of retro games. But because of the budget regarding the fursuit, I didn't go to PAX East with a lot of money. But I did manage to buy several games. Most notably Shining Wisdom, which a lot of people say is a really mid game and sucks. I mean, there's some bad ideas in here, like having to tap B to run, having to tap B to use your magic. That kind of sucks. But honestly, Shining Wisdom is not that bad. When you're starved for RPGs like you are on the Saturn in North America, like, even having a crappy Zelda clone is better than nothing. Like, yeah, this is, like, not the most graphically impressive game out there. Yeah, the game sounds like it was made in RPG Maker 2000. Yeah, it's mid. But you know what? I like this. I like Shining Wisdom. And just like the Saturn port of SimCity 2000, this is a little bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. At least a newer one. So I put that down there. And I also bought Tomb Raider. Please ignore the NFL sticker. Tomb Raider on the Saturn, from what I heard, is the definitive version, and because I wanted a 3D, third-person action-adventure game on the Saturn that isn't some sort of isometric 2D bullshit, I bought this. I also barely played it. I only played the gym part a little bit just to, get that thing to go. And here's Street Fighter Alpha, a game meant for the Saturn because the Saturn has 6 buttons on its controller, and I have the PS1 port of this, and I want to say this is a better version of that same game, and I like it, even though all I do is play as Chun-Li, because Chun-Li is stacked, because when you play a fighting game, always bet on the Chinese girl to be overpowered. Always. It's the same for Street Fighter, it's the same for Soul Calibur, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for just about any fighting game in existence, if I'm going to be frank. And then I bought the game that I was most excited to buy, Steep Slope Sliders. And this game is broken. The disc is scratched to hell and back. There's some transparent spots that's visible from underneath the disc if you put it against the light. And here's the thing about PAX East. Every year, for the past 3 years, including this year, by the way, I would get at least one game, and it's only one game, by the way, that doesn't work. The first year was Pokemon XD, and that was a hell of an expensive replacement. And then next was Skies of Arcadia for the GameCube. Yeah, Skies of Arcadia Legends. That was also a substantially expensive replacement. And this year, Steep Slope Sliders was also kind of expensive, albeit $63 compared to like the nearly $200 for XD and like $130 or so for Skies of Arcadia. This is actually cheap, which is funny because the Saturn is always the big, rare, expensive game console, similar to the GameCube, except nobody really talks about how expensive GameCube collecting is when compared to discussions around the Saturn, but, at least the GameCube lasted more than 3 years. And that Reggie Fils-Aimé and Minoru Akara are both better individuals than Bernie Stolar. Fucking fight me. I do not like Bernie Stolar. Just because he died doesn't mean I'm going to like him anymore. I respect him, and I respect what he did with the Saturn, but I'm still not going to like him. But the thing about Steep Slope Sliders is I bought it from Dial-Up Games, which has always been a very reliable purveyor of games. In fact, the most unreliable purveyor of games at PAX East, as far as game quality goes for discs and shit, is Game Mania. However, Game Mania pulled in clutch this year because both of the games that I bought from them actually work. Dial-Up Games, I bought for $75 a bum game. So now this is obviously an over $100 purchase at this point, trying to get this game to work. Yeah, that's not very fun. And the expenses and the emergency expenses keep racking up because my Saturn cartridge that I've had for 6 years now finally bit the dust. So what happened was, I was playing Shining Wisdom. I decided to save before I go to the knight's quarters and sleep for the night and deal with the princess. Yeah, I know Shining Wisdom has a really cliched plot, but I don't really give a shit. Really, I'm just there to play a Zelda clone. So anyway, the game froze mid-save, which is not good. So I reset the Saturn, saw almost all the save files on this bitch completely corrupted. So I started deleting them thinking, oh, I'll just get rid of the corrupted files. No biggie. It crashed my Saturn. So I reset. Crashed my Saturn the moment I got into the system settings. So I took it out, tested a different cartridge to make sure the cartridge slot still worked. This bastard still works. So, cartridge slot wasn't the problem. This thing was. And normally, you're not supposed to get third-party anything for the Saturn. Especially with how sensitive the cartridge slot is, and with how crappy the Saturn is hardware-wise when in regards to the cartridges. But this was my long-term save storage, and I lost a lot of saves. I lost all of my SimCity 2000 files. I lost both of my Shining the Holy Ark save files, one of which is in the second or third to last dungeon in the game, which sucked. I lost a fair amount of save files on this bitch, and now, yeah. And by the way, this is my long-term alternative main save source. Now it's fucking dead. Luckily, because God tends to work in mysterious ways, sometimes he blesses you with a Pokemon game, a rare GameCube Pokemon game that doesn't work, and sometimes he's helpful. And what happened was, I learned that, of course, this is a dumb thing, but the Saturn is actually, when it comes to its accessories, are region-free. You can plug in a Japanese controller into the Saturn and it will work just fine. In fact, I have a Japanese controller right here, and it works just fine. But I didn't think that carried over to the cartridges. Turns out they do, and I bought an OEM Japanese Saturn memory cartridge for $18 off of eBay. And luckily, things are looking up, because I didn't have to spend an arm and a leg to get an American one, which cost like $63. And frankly, the only reason you would want to get an American one is just so it matches, so the cartridge matches the color of the system. But then again, I don't think that really matters. This is more of an any port in a storm kind of situation. So I don't care that I get a memory cartridge that doesn't match the color of my Saturn. And I don't think anyone should give a shit about that. All you need is something that works, and I just need something that works. And I think that covers it for Saturn shit that I had to deal with. Fucking bullshit, by the way, but that's what you do. So that's what happens when you work with actual hardware. Shit just breaks. Shit either doesn't work, or is in such poor condition that they don't work, or they just break. And you might be thinking, well, why don't you get a box with a fucking Raspberry Pi with emulation on and play everything with an Xbox One controller, despite the fact that most consoles weren't designed with the Xbox One controllers in mind. Like, how do you get a Saturn controller to work on an Xbox One controller without mapping everything to the shoulder and trigger buttons? It's stupid. Same goes for GameCube, by the way. But alas, that covers it. Hopefully that's really it for this video. I wasn't looking to make a new video today, but I got bored, and I was feeling a little proud of the work that I've been doing in my room, and I wanted to show it off. And I also want to bitch about my Saturn, because I haven't made anything Saturn-related in years. And I want to prove to Pandemonium that I still like my Saturn, just because I haven't been playing it as much. Anyway, doodles!